Do you believe in alien visitation or do you believe in mass hysteria? We're here to talk about it. This is Aliens and Stuff.
Hey everyone, welcome to Aliens and Stuff. I'm Mike, this is Tom Spence, and make sure you like, subscribe and hit the bell notification. Very, very important. Spence, I'm interested to see what you've been looking into this week.
Okay, so I know that you're familiar with this. I'm not so sure about you, Tom, but the Zimbabwe UFO sighting / close encounter of a third kind.
Wow.
You know about this?
I know about this.
Yes, I do know about this.
Okay, so James Fox, who directed The Phenomenon, was talking about it on Joe Rogan. I've been looking at the Mail and Guardian, which is a news body in Africa. I've tuned into BBC World Service and listened to their Zimbabwe correspondent talking about it.
There's quite a lot of white papers online about this as well.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know why the community haven't picked this one up.
Well, it's one of those sort of, I wouldn't call it like an underground topic, but it's something where people, for some reason, just haven't latched on. And I mean, it's not even like there isn't interviews or you know, sightings, drawings, things like that. There's loads of information out there. So I'm going to tell you about it. So we're talking back, way back, 1994, okay, mid-September. People saw a strange craft, okay, and lights in the sky, described as brightly coloured and moving fast, seen over Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, South Africa was laden with sightings.
Just Southern Africa in general.
Yeah, generally. Now, initial witnesses, astronomers initially thought it was a meteor shower, okay? People have described it, or their initial impressions, as everything from a helicopter to Jesus passing through.
Well, there was actually a meteor shower reported by astronomers, wasn't there, as well?
Yeah.
To note here. But
upon closer inspection, it was described as a long shape, cigar-shaped. Planes saw it. So JanSmart, Johannesburg, Air Traffic Control, the airport, they sighted it. 14 people at the airport.
It was spotted by several aircraft around about the same time, and also later on we received reports from Zimbabwean and Zambian air traffic controllers that they also received reports from aircrew that could see this bright thing in the sky.
Initially, they didn't know what it was. Upon closer inspection, they described it as two big red-orange balls, which they thought potentially were two engines. Then they noticed that it had no sound. So it was moving silently, okay? And it was also described as a capsule-like fireball trailing fire and flanked by two smaller capsules, okay?
Because there was more than one of them that was talked about. And this, I think, is quite important because a lot of time we talk about UFOs, we talk about being singular and on their own and they turn up in the sky, but it's quite interesting that there's more than one of them here.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, it's a very well-cited UFO. I mean, we're talking, maybe not talking Phoenix Lights levels of witnesses, but a lot of witnesses across different countries.
So what we're saying is the meteor shower could be them entering the atmosphere, and then that's what a lot of people saw.
Maybe, yeah.
Potentially.
And then other people see it flying around, etc. Could be account for the...
Yeah.
To what, Pittsburgh?
Oh, well, potentially. I mean, also, you've got to remember as well, 1994 rural Zimbabwe, okay?
Oh, 100%. The fact people saw it and reported it in the first place.
No internet access.
No.
Probably very little television access.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like this is something that they're you know, but I mean, word spread, but it's not like it's going to be super prevalent at the time.
Of course.
Okay, so they've seen the UFO. Now we're flashing to the aerial school.
So this is a school.
This is in Ruwa in Zimbabwe.
The kids at this school were more privileged in that area, weren't they? They were like rich farmers and people that had jobs.
They were well off. They were well off.
Yeah.
They were well off.
Okay.
So anyway, of course, because it's school time, they're not aware of these sightings. It's not like everybody's phones are blowing up because of Twitter and stuff like that.
And these kids are like between the ages of kind of like 6 and 12 on its primary age.
Yeah, about that sort of age.
Yeah.
So I've got a few. There's a slight discrepancy in that, but we'll get onto it. So 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. All the children go out for their mid-morning break and they go out to the playground. Now, there were no teachers about at the time. There was a meeting going on and the teachers were in the staff room. The only person that was out there that was an adult was the tuck shop mistress, okay, who didn't actually see anything, but had the children running over to her and saying, you know, afterwards. So we're coming on to that. But it depends on where you look at the source from, because the numbers aren't exact. But BBC Worldwide said it was sort of 50 to 60 children. And initially they saw something shiny in the trees.
Well, it looked like it was like glinting in the trees, like a disc.
Are you sure it wasn't a Harrier jump jet or an aircraft?
No.
Something that the Zimbabwe Air Force
It was
have
like
got?
in a disc.
And we're talking, 8 years old to 11 years old, all from different backgrounds and different ethnicities. Yes, quite privileged, but at the time, a real diverse cultural mix, okay?
Yeah, some obviously white farmers' children, some, local black children. There was a real mix. There was even some kind of Indian children, I believe, wasn't there? Yeah, because there's cultural farming.
Yeah, it was a real mix. Now, so there was actually an eyewitness who was interviewed in the Mail and Guardian as well, which is a sort of quite prominent newspaper in the area. And she specifically said it was 62 6 to 12-year-olds that witnessed it. So that's where the sort of...
That's the one I read.
The common 62 number comes about there. So anyway, these children are out having a bit of a play when they see 3 or 4 disc-like objects land in the thick, long grass, bushes, undergrowth and trees. And they're not quite sure what it is. It's sort of, a bit obscured, not really sure what's going on. Anyway, so they go and investigate. Once they get a bit of a closer look, and there's a lot of eyewitness accounts about this. Yeah. Lots of people were interviewed at the time. Well, lots of children at the time were interviewed, and a lot of people now looking back on it. And they describe it as sort of more of a disc or saucer-like object. Mm-hmm. And then from the drawings, you can see it's sort of almost like a dome shape. So,
and the
curved at the top.
drew this, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
In crayon. A lot of them did after this. Which I find really quite sinister, because how would they know that unless they'd seen it on the TV? But this was 1994.
Yeah, and rural Zimbabwe.
Yeah. They couldn't Google it,
Yeah. Karen.
No, go ahead.
Well, because you're probably going to get onto this, is why I stopped. But didn't the principal at the time, after the weekend and all the kids were terrified, didn't he split them up and get all their accounts?
Yes, I am coming on to that.
That's fine. I didn't want to ruin it. Sorry.
No,
That's why I paused.
It's fine. So anyway, the children described this craft, and then they also described figures slightly taller than them, so just slightly higher than children. What? It's rumoured to be about sort of 1 metre by some accounts, surrounding the craft. On top of it, around it, they were described as little black men in black shiny kinds of suits, tight-fitting, and then one big one and quite a few little ones. And an eyewitness said they looked a bit like Michael Jackson.
Do you know what?
Leave that settle there.
This was prime Michael Jackson crazy town.
Yeah, well, no, this is like Earth Song era Michael Jackson as well. Elven.
I mean, you can probably see if you think of a grey alien and how we in previous episodes have had them described, you can.
I've never heard actually, has somebody ever described Michael Jackson as an alien?
Did he get out and go?
Shambone.
I
won't lie as well. When I was a kid, I really wanted to be Michael Jackson.
So did I. I love Michael Jackson.
What we're saying is Michael Jackson's landed in the field with a load of children. Carry on.
Can we say that?
This is a slightly different episode to what Michael Jackson...
It was all serious up until that point. No, carry on.
So,
and we're leaving that in. Right.
So anyway, this being was described as having long, straight, black hair, kind of like Michael Jackson.
They had longish hair. They kind of turned around and stared and then went back into a kind of like ship. There was sort of one big one with quite a few little ones scattered around. Yes, it was very, very shiny black kind of suit. It was tight-fitting. I just thought it was some kind of alien from a different planet.
One of them described that there was a red one, a white one, and a black one. So sort of, different colours of extraterrestrials.
What, their skin or their uniform?
They didn't specify. Okay. That was just, it was
Shaman.
White one, red one, black one. And described them as having big black eyes, as big as rugby balls, high on their forehead and circling down to their
they're describing
cheeks.
a traditional kind of grey alien.
Then, a grey alien and a Michael Jackson.
I thought you were going to say they're describing a traditional Michael Jackson.
But are you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm absolutely fine.
I'm okay, Thomas. One witness said that the mouth was just a slit and the ears were hardly discernible. Mm-hmm. Okay, so once again, grey territory or Michael Jackson. Now, some of the children, and this is very interesting culturally, thought that they were Zwitwambo or Tokoloshes.
Again, for everyone watching, you will know if you're fans of the show that we are terrible at pronunciation. So
He was doing
yet
well.
again, that's another example of.
He was doing a good job.
Well, he tries.
I quit. Zwitwambo or Tokoloshes, which are evil goblins of Shona and, here we go, Ndembele folklore. I could be saying that wrong.
Nailed
I
it.
probably am.
Nailed it.
Thanks, bro.
Nailed it, yeah.
And a lot of the children started crying because they thought they were these demonic entities from local folklore, and they thought they were going to be eaten.
Didn't one of them? Oh, this will make me. Didn't one of them mix it up and think that it was actually the caretaker?
They thought that it was the gardener. Yes.
He
So-
travels to work in a UFO. Well, he comes.
I love how tickled he is
comes
by
and
this.
mows the grass in his UFO once
I
a
didn't.
week at the school.
When we started talking
Sorry.
about doing this topic, I didn't think it was going to go this
No,
way.
no. This,
I never
we've got
the
to make
Michael
it.
Jackson thing through me. Right.
So
Some
anyway.
people thought it was the gardener, but it's probably not.
So this craft anyway. So Jackson gets back in the UFO with his children,
And
and
in the grass.
and it went up into the sky 1 meter and disappeared by all accounts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did it make any noise, this thing?
Not really. No.
And then what happened?
And then he walked towards us and he walked back again and they just went.
How? How did they go?
It just went all of a sudden.
What, like a helicopter? Went
No,
up?
just went. And then it didn't come back again.
And did you girls see that as well?
Now.
Didn't it literally? But the accountant also it disappeared, not shot off, didn't it?
Oh no! It just
It vanished.
Yeah.
Like kind of faded away.
yeah.
No,
It
that's-
was It wasn't like it Millennium Falconed into
And
the
this
distance.
I've got a theory about that though, because this comes from children. That they're very kids in their development aren't very good at judging velocity and speed. So it could well have shot off, but their eyes would not.
12-year-olds.
Yeah, no, anything to that. Your coordination isn't quite there. Your eyes don't quite pick up on things, which is why kids can be quite clumsy. If you throw a ball at them, they're
What, a
not
10-year-old?
Yeah.
Lionel Messi was signed when he was like 12, wasn't he?
All right, we're
Pretty
not
sure.
talking about
Yeah, but, I
Lionel
mean, Messi is a
This
beast
has gone
though.
from
So
Michael Jackson
No,
to
no,
a
no.
gardener
So,
to
no, but
Lionel
the
Messi.
only reason I say that is because what I would think is if kids thought they'd seen a UFO and an alien, when somebody said, well, what happened when it went? You would automatically go, well, it shot off in the sky. So if you turn around and said, well,
Yeah,
it kind
that's
of
the
just
point.
disintegrated into nothing, that's not what you would probably
sort of
automatically say.
dematerialised.
Yeah, that's not what you would say.
I
You'd be
think
like, oh,
that's
it
a-
shot off.
I
So
think that's a good
that's
point.
why I think it's a good point and probably
interesting.
adds a little bit more credence to
They're,
it.
they're cloaking technology like the Klingons in Star Trek. That may be.
Actually.
The question is, warbird or bird of prey?
Both excellent ships.
Excellent ships.
Let us know in the comments.
So, the teachers told them to chill out. Okay, when the kids went back in,
Yeah,
they told the
shut up,
tuck
get on with
shop
your work.
lady. They went in. They told the teachers, and the teachers were like, "Crack on, kids. You know, we got work to do." So anyway, the next day, the school was inundated with calls from the children's parents saying, "Our kids came home and they were freaked the flip out. They were livid. They didn't know what was going on. Tears, screaming. Everyone was in a right panic about it." So, Colin Mackey, who is the principal at the Ariel school, he didn't see it because he was in that big staff meeting, but he genuinely believes that the children saw something. Now, he's not saying that he believes they saw extraterrestrials or a UFO or a UAP or whatever we're calling it now, but he believes that they saw something. Now, following that, Cynthia Hind, who is a ufologist.
She was a local one as well, wasn't she?
Yeah, she works for MUFON. She investigates sightings in Africa for MUFON. She also wrote a book called UFOs Over Africa, which was quite popular. But she was like, "Oh, I'm interested in this," and goes to have a bit of a look. Now,
And this was in the following days, wasn't it?
yeah,
It wasn't
yeah,
like
yeah, a couple
later,
of days
years later.
yeah. So I mean, she was looking. You know, she interviewed people who had seen the lights in the sky. I couldn't find much on it, but she also interviewed a trucker who had seen strange beings on the road.
Now, I read this. There were humanoid features walking up the road, and this was
were.
like 2 days before this alleged sighting at the school.
It was around that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a huge amount of info.
And this
on it
was
that I
after
found.
this alleged meteor shower as well that was reported.
sounds-
It does all tie in from a time point of view, the story.
Yeah, visitation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds very similar to that. You see that Indian video where they've got that like alien walking along the
Yes.
street. That
No,
sounds very
that-
similar to
that's come out in the
weird,
last
That
yeah.
gave me a shiver. I actually
Yeah.
saw that a while ago. That's
It's
only
got
just
really long
started
arms and really
circulating.
thin. I mean, anyway.
It could be me.
But no, what I'm saying is that made me think that's the image I've got in my head from when you said that.
Yeah.
I
So
like that.
So following that, Dr. John Mack. Yeah.
Yeah, I know
Heard of
John.
Mac.
Yeah,
Okay, so
Harvard
he's-
University professor, isn't he?
He was the head of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School at the time. He's also a Pulitzer Prize-winning author. He wrote a bestseller called Abduction: Human Encounters with Aliens.
Was this
and,
after he wrote this? After it happened?
before that.
Okay.
And he faced massive scrutiny.
They investigated him, didn't they? Harvard
They did, yeah, no, because of his belief in the sort of alien abduction phenomenon, he was sort of ridiculed. They investigated him. One of his peers, Paul McHugh from Johns Hopkins Medical School, he described him as a brilliant fellow who occasionally loses it, and this time he's lost it big time. So
We've been
yeah.
described like that, so we can empathise, I suppose.
Yeah, I totally empathise with the guy, but he was very, very open-minded guy. Anyway, he was already actually out on his way to Africa. He had a couple of interviews to do, and when the news broke, he changed his travel plans and diverted himself to Ruwa in Zimbabwe. Now, when he was interviewing the children, they said that the beings that were outside of the craft telepathically communicated with them.
Now, when I read this absolutely blew my mind, because I don't know many other cases where this many people had the same message, let alone the children.
Well, also, you're looking at, once again, mid-90s, no internet access, not very much TV coverage. It's not like they're all sat at home watching Uri Geller bending spoons. You know,
Yeah.
it's a
Jackson
unique...
did.
Although Michael Jackson did.
Maybe it was MJ.
Perhaps.
Anyway, let's move along.
One of the little beings could have been Bubbles the monkey. Well, that fell flat. Lead balloon. But anyway, so yeah, they communicated with the children telepathically, and he told them we're not looking after the planet and the world is going to end if we don't take care of it.
What I thought was maybe the world's going to end. Maybe they're telling us the world's going to end. Maybe because we don't look after the planet and the area properly. I just felt all horrible inside.
Say more about that horrible feeling, Lisa. What was it like?
It was like in the world, all the trees will just go down and there will be no air and people will be dying.
So
They also said technology was bad.
yeah, so Francis, who was a fifth grader there, he warned about something that's going to happen and that pollution mustn't be. And then there was Emma, who was 11 years old, who was interviewed and said, I think they want people to know that we're actually making harm on this world and we mustn't get too technologied. Okay? Now, unfortunately, this chap was hit by a drunk driver and died shortly afterwards.
London, that was,
It was
wasn't
in London, yeah.
I do you know what I find? Because I've got kids. I think I've said on other shows, and you know, I speak to other parents and stuff all the time, and I know for a fact that kids are terrible liars. Now let's assume for a minute they're all lying. Okay.
Okay.
You could not get 60 or however many claims across the different reports to all come up with a consistent story. They might say it or tell it differently, but you could not get them all to have a consistent lie. There would be holes in what they said, and there wasn't any. A lot of them said the same. Well, they all said it. A lot of them told it in a different way, but they all said the same message, which I think it gives this story a huge amount of credibility.
Well, and they've stuck to their story.
Their
That's
whole
true.
lives.
But also in all the photos and all the pictures and bits they drew in all their accounts, they do vary ever so slightly. But apparently, when somebody's recapping what they've seen, especially when like a main event, you're meant to have slight discrepancies. If everybody says exactly the same thing, that's a key thing to prove that somebody's lying.
It's funny, I was taught a very important lesson when I was in primary school, which is where the custodian came in and then he left. And our teacher stopped the lesson and then said, right, everyone, write down what you think he was wearing. Okay?
Yeah.
All of the kids started writing, okay? And then, like, you'd be like, oh, what colour were his shoes? And then someone else would go, oh, they were red. And you'd go, oh, okay, red shoes, you know? And then the sort of the whispers started circulating, and everybody had different accounts of what the guy was wearing. And he'd been in not 30 seconds beforehand, because we don't always fully absorb
We're different
our
learners,
spatial.
aren't we?
Yeah, we take in different bits of information, what your brain considers important to remember. Maybe it was the alien, maybe it was the shape of the craft, maybe it was the colour glow it was emitting. But it still means that everybody saw it. It's just your account varies slightly.
Yeah.
There's a scientific term for it, and I'm sure, but I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, so I mean, the only thing that I would say that possibly could run against this is allegedly not all of the children said that they saw something. It wasn't all of them, apparently. And also, Principal Mackey got all of the students that said they saw something to draw images, and that was about 30 to 40 images, okay? Now, Hind, the ufologist who is investigating this, only chose 22 of the drawings, which looked remarkably similar. Now, looking at that and I suppose generating questions is, as a ufologist that's really, really interested in the encounter and, wants to learn more about the field, why wouldn't you keep all of the drawings? Why would you only select 22 of the 30 to 40 drawings that are
I've
there?
got an explanation for that. It could potentially be some kids are better at drawing than others, and they just wanted the most accurate depiction. But again, you're right, it does kind of skew the data a little bit.
It does. I mean, it
does skew
It,
the data.
it hangs of confirmation bias.
Yeah, and also, even if there is 20 or 30 drawings and there was originally 40 or 45, if you're talking 6-year-old and they're trying to draw something they saw the day before, and then suddenly, they see something out of the window and they start drawing that, you don't know the levels of concentration these kids have, and it might be quite obvious that they just got distracted and therefore it's not relevant. You don't know, but that's that. We're just.
Going back to my point, I personally think something like this happening. Okay, it's too detailed.
Yeah.
For that many children of that age to all come up with the same story.
Yeah.
For sure.
There will also be some kids, because kids are evil to each other, quite frankly. We've seen it. Kids are horrible to each other.
Well, Tom and I used to be worst enemies, didn't we?
That's a bit of a fun fact.
Yeah, fun fact for everybody at home. Tom and I hated each other in school. We were not friends.
Actually, it was only when we were 16, 17.
Yeah, that we became the best of friends. But
yeah, brother from
sorry,
another
Mike.
mother.
Anyway, going back to it, what I'm saying is, I think there
Third wheeling.
with kids being incredibly mean to each other as well. I think there was probably a place there, if it didn't happen, for a lot of the kids to turn around and go, yeah, well, that never happened. And they all gang up on the ones that did, and there'd be a big fight about it, and it would just kind of lose a bit of credibility. And I think the fact that a lot of them stuck to their stories, a lot of them also haven't then come out. I know there was the one in that Guardian article that did, but a lot of them have never talked about it to their spouses in their adult lives. They've never come out and talked about it. They've just completely hushed it up. And that just makes me think that there's a huge amount of credibility.
Well, in that article, and she was known as Sarah in the article,
yes.
It was a fake name. They even mentioned in that article that the bar they were at, the local patrons were ridiculing her. Not UFOs again. So it's kind of like, we've always said before as well, why open yourselves up to that sort of scrutiny? Do you know what I mean?
Well, especially when you're a kid, you don't know that that's what the scrutiny is going to be.
Yeah, of course.
Because you're ignorant to it.
Now, the one other thing that people have spoken about, and this particular case is mentioned in it, is in the Malawi Medical Journal, there is an article by D. Kokota called Episodes of Mass Hysteria in African Schools. Now, allegedly, during that time in the 90s, there were many, many different examples of, I suppose, collective madness.
That happened in Cornwall, where we are.
Well, yeah, funnily enough, actually, back in the 70s.
We talked about the Owl Man, and that was one explanation why people kept seeing the Owl Man.
The period of Cornish
madness.
collective madness, yeah. So one of the explanations there from a sort of scientific angle was that there was a period of sort of mass hysteria at the time, and people saw not UFOs every single time, but demons, things like that. At the same time, I don't necessarily buy into mass hysteria theories all the time. I mean, you get.
What do they expect?
It wouldn't be localized to one event. It would be over a longer period of time, and it would happen to more and more kids, because it would have been like you say, like a gas, or it could be lead in the water, or whatever it may be, in order to be able to trigger that. But there is one thing which goes on that, which I did read, because it's a multicultural school, and you've got like English, Indian, you've got African kids or what have you. Some like kind of tribal kids.
Indigenous.
Yeah. Indigenous, that's the word I'm looking for. So that some of their beliefs are that beings would come and hunt and bits. So some of the kids were more terrified than others, and they related it back to their kind of cultural differences and how they would view things like that. So a lot of the kids associated it with old mythological tales of people coming and hunting their tribe, as opposed to like the other ones that aren't, they just didn't find it as terrifying, but had like the message put to them.
That's I think interesting, because but even though they all had different explanations to justify what they saw, the story of what they saw was always consistent,
which and always
is why
the same.
I think it's
this is how they felt.
Exactly.
I suppose
some
the
felt
question
terrified.
is the group.
Well, I've got a question actually.
Oh, hit me
Do you
up.
mind if I hit? Of
course,
because
always.
the more research I did, there was also, and I think we may even do an episode on this in the future. There was another almost identical sighting that occurred at a school with a UFO that came down in Australia, with actually more children and teachers at this Australian school saw the near enough exact same thing that they did in Zimbabwe. And the question I want to ask you guys is, let's assume for a minute it is aliens, okay? Make that overarching kind of generalisation. It is aliens. Why schools?
Well, there was a comment made about this where, so there's a couple of things that I've read. One said, did the aliens know that they were children? Or did they just see a mass gathering?
That's a very good point.
Yeah, so that was one of them.
What, because of their height? They thought they were the same height as them?
Well, they just, I mean, or there is, no variation in height difference. Who knows? I mean, you look at animals, they can grow to adult size in months compared to humans, where it takes years and years and years. Another example was, another comment was that maybe they were trying to speak to the youth because they'd be the next generation and they would be the
Us
people.
as adults were completely a lost cause to them.
Yeah, effectively, yeah. Well, they would
agree.
be the generation to effect a change,
especially
if necessary.
an environmental one or technological one. Yeah,
and perhaps they went to rural Africa because as a less, I suppose, industrially built up country at the time, maybe they believed that they were more in tune with nature and would be more receptive to the message.
So what the aliens did essentially then is what we're saying is to stop technological advance, they decided to approach a load of millennials.
They wouldn't have been,
they would have been millennials.
Yeah, 94.
I've got another little theory though.
Go for it.
So they landed in like a wooded marshland area with trees, lots of grass.
It wasn't marsh, it was arid.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, put it this way. Imagine they're a bunch of scientists and they're coming to look for maybe different types of organisms or what have you, right? It's like with us, right? We study ants, we study dolphins, we study monkeys.
We study microbes.
Mate, that's my point. So the fact, maybe they're just coming down on at that specific point to try and find something microbial maybe or what have you, to do, maybe take a soil sample, right? Because that area is of interest for whatever reason to them. But it happens to be by a school that is filled, as far as they're concerned, with semi-intelligent creatures, which may be on their scale no more intelligent than what we would consider. But they're so far advanced, they're like, well, they're not going to bother us anyway. Let's just go get what we need to get. And then whilst they're there, they're like, oh, look after your planet because it's you're killing it, all right? See you later,
Hi, kids.
We're out. Do you know what I mean? So if they may not have gone there to communicate with the kids, they may not have gone there because it's a school. They may have gone there for another reason that we don't know about, and the kids happen to have been there and seen it, and they're like, well, hi.
What you're saying is that these aliens are essentially the David Attenborough of their civilization.
No, have you ever seen, like, there's always this big debate where you look at it and go, are aliens even interested in taking an interest in humans at all, right? Because we're far too primitive for them, right? Maybe they just want to understand.
That is a garbage comment.
I agree with that comment.
Yeah.
But people make that comment, but if you take that, then maybe they weren't even trying to communicate with the kids at school. They just did because they were there, but actually were there for another reason.
So it could be circumstantial. Yeah,
could be. It's like, if you're going to find, I don't know, a fish in the sea and a whale flings past, you'll be like, hey, buddy, what's up? You didn't go there for the whale. You went there for the fish.
Free Willy.
Whatever.
It's a good idea. So we've had Attenborough, we've had Michael Jackson, we've had Lionel Messi, we've had everyone in this.
It's been an absolute concoction.
So let's circle it back and ask the question. Yeah, I mean, is it normal, paranormal, or Jacko?
Spencer?
Paranormal, certainly.
I agree. I think out of all the episodes that we have done, on this show, this is the most credible case that we have ever
Even
covered.
more credible than Travis?
Even more credible than Travis. I'm going to say even more credible than Skinwalker Ranch.
Even more credible than the Owl Man of Morning Smith.
Yeah, I'm gonna put my 50 cent in. It's definitely paranormal.
Yeah, agreed.
Have we just agreed twice running? This never happens.
This is the second episode in a row.
However, I can see the next episode not being quite as agreeable. So
Guys.
look out for that one when it comes up.
So guys, let us know what you think in the comments. We'd be interested to hear what you think about this one because, and if you can find anything else online about it or any other videos as well, let us know. We'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on this. So also,
Like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon.
thanks everyone.